Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of 6, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Today, I have another one of my conference friends on, Charla McKinley. Ooh, did I say that right?
No, that's okay.
No.
It's Charla. I was supposed to be a boy. Charlie. Surprise. I'm a girl. So Charla McKinley, like the
Okay.
mountain.
But this is coming from the girl named Kody. So,
Right.
So Charla has the business Beyond Personal Finance, and I am so excited to have you on today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. It was really nice meeting you at the conference, and I love what you're doing. I love that you and I have sort of similar stories where we just saw a need and we jumped in. So I love that.
Yeah, and that's what our kids are needing right now. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and
Sure. Yes. Well, I am a mom, a former homeschool mom. I've got 2 kids, 21 and 16. And back when my son was in middle school, he was homeschooled. It was 7th grade. And that was the year that I'd set aside to really teach about money. My background is finance. I have a degree from the University of Texas, and I'm a CPA. And so money is kind of my DNA, and my son and daughter both, but my son he was my first, really grew up. We were talking about this all the time, but 7th grade was the time where we were going to get really serious about it. And I like to treat money as a curriculum and really focus in on it almost like a class. So I started with just the typical stuff that's on the market today about kids money stuff. And my son was so sweet, but he's a typical teenager. He was going to be honest, and he said, "Mom, this is really great, but this is for poor people, and I'm just not gonna be poor." And I was like, "Jack," and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna be an engineer, and they make like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, and so why do I need to buy a $5,000 car?" And it was in that moment that I realized that he doesn't see it, and he doesn't know. And when we often hear our teenagers think or say that they're going to be, a lot of times we think that they are to being a movie star or being a YouTuber or video game, whatever. And that wasn't true for my son. My son genuinely thought $60,000 was rich, and $60,000 is good money, but there's a lot of constraints that adults have that kids just don't see. And so I knew that in order to show him just how tough it's going to be, that I needed to kind of create a curriculum that didn't exist. And so that's what I did. I used, my inspiration was Game of Life.
I love it.
Just go through. Yep.
Okay.
And you just
so guess what my inspiration was for my curriculum?
Same.
Farmville.
Right. Exactly. And so, I love that. I loved Choose Your Own Adventure when I was a kid. I love those books. And so I did that and sort of married it with true personal finance principles, Beyond Personal Finance. It is a walk 20 years of a student's future. So we start at their 52 and they go to 42, and they, by choosing a career, and that career gets paid a certain amount of money. We look with true numbers from the Department of Labor database. If that they can pick any job. And then with that money, they just start designing their life. They pick a car, an apartment, they get married, they have kids, they buy a house, they furnish the house, they, buy insurance, they invest their money, all the things that we would want a 22 to a 42-year-old person to experience and go through. I just have them actually do it with budget spreadsheets so that they can see, oh, wow, my income grows a lot slower than my expenses. And at the end of that, the end of that reality, our advice and the advice of other, intelligent, financial savvy people start to make a whole lot more sense. Because, if you think you're going to be rich and someone talks to you about negotiating a car or using coupons, or you just don't see that that's relevant for you. But when you're finished beyond personal finance, you go, oh, I need to do whatever it takes to save money because, I'm going to have to pay for, a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it. And Jack, who was pretty apathetic about school, he loved it. I had invited some friends over so that they could kind of do it together. And it was cute. They were kind of competing, how much do you have? And, what car did you buy? And what house did you buy? All we got to the end and he's like, well, what do you mean it's over? I was like, well, it's May, so I'm pretty exhausted.
Right.
He's like, well, what happens to 43-year-old me? And I was like, well, that's on you, bud, because I can't do it anymore. I just kind of knew if I could capture the heart and the attention of teenage boys, that it's probably something I ought to expand. And so that's kind of my story.
That's awesome. I came and talked to you because I saw someone walk past my booth holding your book in my hand, or in their hand. Wow, I can't talk. And I was like, what is that? Can I see it? Can I get a picture? Where'd you get it?
Yeah.
Because in booths, you don't get out very often. So you're like, I know pictures, so I'll find that later. And I came down and talked to you. And my first thought is I have 2 kids going into their freshman year this year.
Perfect.
And they're having a hard time kind of embracing this next level learning. And so I'm like, if they understand what they really need to pursue the rest of their life, that they might get a little bit more serious about their education right now.
That's exactly right. I mean, that was literally my thought. Is my son had big dreams. Every time we go to a conference, like these conferences are in nice places. And my son will walk into the Gaylord or the Kalahari Lodge or the, something, and he'll go, oh yeah, this is right. This is what I like. And then, other times, when we travel as a family, we usually stay at like the Courtyard or, something like that. And Jack will go, why are we staying here? And, it's frustrating. It is an insight into who he is and what he wants his world to be like. And I just feel like if you're going to have a high standard of living, it is, as long as you understand that has to be paid for. And there's nothing more frustrating than having a high standard of living and income that doesn't match that. So I wanted to show Jack, hey, here are your car choices. Here are your apartment choices. Here are your house. Here's a life. Design it and just see what you need. And it's not the same for everybody. There are plenty of students. I've been teaching this since 2014 locally in my area. And I've got students who, on the clothing, I always ask, the thing asks, what kind of clothing are you stylish? Are you blah, blah, blah. And some of these kids choose the socks and underwear budget. And that's true to them. They're not all that into clothes. They, have a very basic car, and that's great for them. They also get to see just what level of income they need to support that life. So it's not really about collecting as much money as you ending up on Millionaire Row, anything like that. It's just think about your future and what it's going to look like. And then let's put some dollars to it so you have an idea of what you need to support that lifestyle.
Yeah, I think back to I took computer careers over the summer before my freshman year. And
Yeah.
we had to do kind of something similar to what you're talking about. We had to plug in everything that we wanted, and then it would tell us how much we needed to make a year to afford that.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to accept that because I had grown up on an 1,800-acre ranch where my dad drove brand new F-150s. We had a big house,
Yeah. Of
and I just plugged all that stuff in. I'm going to have what my family has.
course.
And they're like, yeah, you would need to make, $1.5 million a year. I was like, oh, that,
Oh, oh dear.
yeah. And I didn't understand because I knew my parents didn't make that. I mean, at 14, I knew approximately what my parents made,
Sure.
but it was through years of hard work and my dad building his business and stuff that he was able to afford that. And I was like, well, I'll just inherit the ranch. So there's
Uh,
that bill gone.
yeah,
Well, I did not inherit the ranch.
indeed.
Not, for any,
Of
uh,
course.
my dad retired and downsized and he passed away and my stepmom has everything and that's the way it should be.
Right.
But, my husband and I now have a 40-acre ranch that we worked really hard for.
That's right.
And we don't make $1.5 million a year.
No, no, but you also, I'm guessing you're not disenfranchised with the whole thing. You don't think, you with your eyes open and
Mhm.
that's the important part is if they're not exposed, you just don't know what they're thinking. And you think you know what they're thinking because they're your kids or whatever, but they are making some assumptions that they don't always voice. One time I had a kid who, a student in my class, they bought a house, in less than, I don't know, 10 or something like that. They buy a house. And the girl raised her hand and she's like, hey, what do we do with the utilities number in our budget? Because of course they lived in an apartment before that, right? And so there was a number on the utilities line. And I was like, well, look, look, what is the house you chose comes with a utility number, just use that. And she's like, well, yeah, but I mean, we own the house now. So like, don't we own the water and electricity and all? That's right. She thought they owned it. And, and she's not dumb. Parents weren't talking to her. Like
Mhm.
it didn't come up in conversation with her family, or she just didn't apply to her, whatever it was. And this curriculum just really ferrets out all of these little things. When we talk about insurance, I have them because I kind of gamify it. They spin a wheel to see what medical event happened to them. They might have a broken collarbone or a tear in their Achilles or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And so it all costs some amount of money, and they have to apply their insurance policy to that medical event. And, so for the first time, even though they have heard the term deductible or copay or something like that at home, for the first time, they're like, oh, wait a minute. So I have to pay even though I've already bought insurance? Yep. So
Mhm.
just until they walk through it. And I didn't want my son walking through it for the very first time that's what happened to me. And I wasted all sorts of money learning lessons. My mom didn't really talk about this stuff. We didn't have a lot of money. So I figured it out with real money. I bought furniture I couldn't afford because I thought I had the money
Yeah.
and I didn't. And the world will tell you have the money because you can buy everything on credit.
Yeah.
So it's just dangerous, and letting them practice life before it gets real.
Mhm.
It's really important to me.
Well, one of the biggest things I teach is the questions that people don't know to ask. And so, like you were just saying, the girl who thought she owned the water, I actually just wrote a small ebook on how to move from an urban or suburban area to a rural area. And that's one of the things is you don't have city water, sewer, septic, all these
Right.
things. And like I tell people what our power bill is, and they're like, how do you afford that? And I'm like, well, but we have a well. And so that's my water bill too. And we have a ranch and we have a walk-in cooler on our ranch. And I have 3 water heaters because I, have one at the barn for our milking system. And so, yeah,
Yeah. And you
it's a
just,
big bill.
it's just things you don't think of. And a lot of times you feel dumb asking, or, you think, you researched it and you read some stuff and you think that's all it is. Oh, yes. Yeah. You got to walk through it. You got to have a guide.
Absolutely. It's, and when we talk about this, I've used this example before, but when you just don't know, you don't know. When I went to, I think it was Missouri. Yeah, it was Missouri. For the conference there, I had rented a car on an offsite car rental company. I didn't realize it was the offsite one. So I had to get an Uber to go get my car.
Yep.
I live in an area where Uber is not a thing. Nowhere near me is Uber a thing. And the last time I needed to, quote, call a cab was in my 20s. And, I needed a ride home from a bar or something. And I, saw the number on the wall and I called it.
Right.
So when it was time for me, I'm literally asking, like, how do I call an Uber?
That's right.
And people
What?
are like, well, you use an app. And I'm like, I use an app. How do they know that I need that I have 7 bags with me because I'm on my way to a conference and I need all my supplies? Are they going to show up in a Toyota sedan, And they're like, no, you say you want a big car. And I'm like, how do I say I want a big car? A gentleman standing next to me at the rental place, I could tell he probably had enough money, but he brings up his app and just called me an Uber. I guess he still didn't even call. He requested an Uber for me.
That's right. Yeah. And it's, it's very complex. It is, we take it for granted when we do it a lot, but that first time, and that's what I love kind of about parenting is you're seeing the world for the very first time through your kids' eyes, because they're doing things the first time. And a lot of times, I just trying to explain things to my kids in terms of them being new to this planet has really helped me think a lot about what I believe and, how things work and why. So I love that. But there's some pains there doing anything for the first.
It really is. And, it's not that I'm an uneducated person. I know my stuff pretty well, but when I don't live in an area that's even a thing, which is really what made me realize so much of what I'm teaching, if it's not a thing for someone, they don't know it.
Correct.
So how is your curriculum going to come to be after you decided this needed to happen?
Yeah. So I just sat down like so many homeschool moms, right? I just had a yellow sheet of paper and just started thinking, what does he need to learn? Mm-hmm. And then how can I teach it? And so I just, I feel like, I don't know if you've ever played those Lego video games where I sit down with my kids and play video games with them just to kind of be in their world. And Lego has a thing, and it almost builds right before you step onto the path. Does that make sense? Like you can see the little Lego bricks being built as the character.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's really cute. So that's kind of what my curriculum, what happened. The first step was teaching him about college and careers and how, not all careers pay, and not all careers are worth a college degree, and not all colleges are the same, and not all degrees are worth it. Like all of those things that he just didn't know. So that's lesson 1 in my class. And I drafted that and then taught it to him. And then, as we went, it became, I wrote it. I started teaching it to locally here. It got locally not famous, but you know what I mean? Like, and people began to say, I really want to take your class, but, I have a conflict, and there was only one of me. So I'd finally decided to just on and video myself teaching. And that was, just watching myself on video.
I know.
It's so painful. And so I just videoed each lesson, and then book together. And then I went to my first North Carolina conference. And that was really eye-opening for me. I hadn't gone to a conference as a homeschool parent, so I was kind of seeing it for the first time as a vendor, and I loved it, and then it kind of grew from there. So each lesson that I thought my son needed to know, I just scrambled around and did some internet research and together, and that's how the 20 lessons came to be.
Nice. I mean, for me, when I was writing my curriculum, the hardest part was the outline.
Yeah.
Like, what order should it be in to make the most sense? After that, I was able to just write it.
Yeah, exactly. Mine was a little bit easier only because since mine is a walk through a person's life, I knew how it has a natural flow. First is career, car, and apartment, then they get engaged, then they get married, then they have children, all of that. And, as I go, I have to gamify it because I'm trying to, make the point, as we do all the time with our kids. Hey, you need an emergency fund, that things happen. And so I found this internet site called Wheel of Names, and some sweet lady has got a free wheel out there that you can use as teachers. And like if you're trying to decide what to eat, you can enter your choices and then spin the wheel. Does that make sense?
Oh,
and so
fun. Yeah.
It'll stop. So I use the Wheel of Names, but instead I put HVAC breaks down, your baby poops on the couch, your radiator cracks, things like that. And so every single lesson they spin a virtual wheel to see what happens to them. And that's also a fun, very real way to say, hey, this, hold up. Just when you're proud of your savings number, you spin a wheel and you've got to replace your roof. So they always, they've got, as I'm in the convention, I've got my alumni come up, because people have taken it all over the country now. And, these teenagers will come up and they'll go, oh, the best part was the Wheel of Doom, or they've got names,
You've been bamboozled.
Yeah, exactly. But that's their favorite part. And because not forget it, they'll not forget that random things happen. And so and this is of course all fake money, but it's costing them some thousands of dollars, and they're coming up with a smile on their face going, oh, those plot twists were really terrible. That's right.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, save your money. You never know.
No, that's what I'm always trying to work with my kids on. And I think my daughter has decided she's saving her money in stocks. She buys candy and hides it in her safe. Because she has 5 brothers.
That's right. That's right. You got it. That is an entrepreneurial spirit right there. I love it.
Right. Because she also sells it to them.
Yeah. It's brilliant. That's what my daughter would do. My daughter had come up with a charity she called the Human Fund. And I was like, oh, that's cute. She made a little place where you put the money in. And I think the idea was for her to go out to the driveway and like a lemonade stand, but instead raise money. And I was kind of proud of her. I was like, oh, that's cute. So then as she's kind of walking out, she's like, Mom, I'm the human. So she was going, like, her big idea was to jolly out to the curb. And so I had to rein her in on that, but
right.
What do you do?
Yeah, they come up with some interesting things.
They sure do. Yeah.
Luckily, all my kids, their side businesses that they've come up with have been reasonable.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my husband and I were, she was probably 5 years old or something. Oh. And my husband and I were like, she's either going to, rule the world, or she's going to end up in a white collar prison type thing, because what is she doing?
Just call her Miss Madoff.
I know. That's right. That's right. So my job in that moment, I also write, in addition to the I also do parenting advice
Mhm.
from a money standpoint, but just in general, just how to raise an adult. And one of my big things is you've got to raise the kid that you have. You've got to notice their problems and walk them through it, and don't necessarily save them from the trouble, help them navigate through the trouble.
Mhm.
If you're not good with numbers, don't have, if your kid isn't good with numbers, that doesn't mean that they should avoid numbers, because those are the victims of credit card people. That's what the credit
Right.
card companies love, is people who
Yeah.
aren't good at numbers. So
I speak on that all the time. Don't shelter your kids from failures.
that is correct. Teach them how to identify the important things, just do everything that's, that they're terrible at, but the critical things they cannot skip.
Yep.
And dealing with your money and numbers is one of them. So you gotta really teach the kid you have. My daughter's a saver and my son is a spender, and our money lessons are very different, because if I were to give my daughter an allowance like I gave my son an allowance, she would just hoard it all. And in fact, my son is 5 years older than she is, and he is her hero. So she would have just saved all the money and given it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I certainly could not, you gotta really know what their weaknesses are and develop those.
Yep. I agree. My daughter's kind of that same, like, she'll earn money and I'll give it to her and she spends it all on her little brothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she's like, I wanted new shorts for whatever is going on. And I'm like, don't know what to tell you. You spent all your money on candy for your brothers.
That's right. And it's a beautiful thing, because if, for them to be broke as kids is way better than broke as 20 somethings. And so I think that we all test the boundaries of life, but certainly with money at some point in our lives. And so the sooner they recognize that tension between what you have and what you want, and just figure out, are you going to work more to have more money to get the thing, or does the thing not mean that much to you? But if there's no tension there, then they really can't learn that lesson.
I agree. So how is your curriculum set up? I know you have a book. Is it online as well, or are they just working through a book?
Yeah, exactly. So the videos that I teach, there are 20 of them, 20 lessons that go through the 20 years of their life. Each video is about 20 minutes long. We cover a topic like buying a car. We talk about new versus used, depreciation, leasing, things that are typical in the personal finance world. But then, of course, the secret sauce is allowing the student to use their money to buy their own car, right? That's where they really start learning. So each one of those lessons, the video is 20 minutes, the homework, sort of picking the car and making the budget, is about an hour total, including the video. So they're following along in my workbook while watching the video, sort of taking some notes on key points and seeing their choices, like which car, which apartment, house, all those. And then they are doing the budget in my portal, which is where the video is. There is a hyperlink to Google Sheets, because what I really feel like is teenagers like to be treated like they are capable and like an adult. And I feel like when we just teach them money stuff like lemonade stand and how to budget their allowance, they really don't get a good picture of what adult money looks like and how adult money works. And so to see it in a Google spreadsheet is like, oh yeah, this is how adults do it. So I use adult tools, and it works pretty well. The kids do a great job. They understand it. The spreadsheet does some of the math, but not all. They still have to calculate their taxes. It's a very high level. If you make 50,000, you're in a tax bracket, and they have to multiply the tax number by to get their taxes. Do it so they get taxes are this much. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It really hits home when it's their money,
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I really love about our style of curriculums is the kids are learning real life skills. And as parents, we aren't having to create those curriculums.
Yes.
Because I know, like, even with personal finance, where you were talking about it, you're like, I was teaching my kids and I'm a CPA, I can teach my kids this. I know for me, I spent so much time creating lessons for my kids because there wasn't an open and go curriculum for farming, that I was not enjoying life with my kids while we were homeschooling.
That's right.
So I love that there's something like this, that yes, my kids help me with my business. Yes, we're open with our kids about what's going on in our personal finances to an extent,
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to have an open and go that they can work through, that I can talk to them and learn with them what they're learning and not have to be creating this myself. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a guy who did a curriculum that his name is Larry Burkett, and he did Money Matters. It's fairly old, but still really good information. And he had said in his book that he understood that this was, kind of philosophical advice he was giving, and in order to make it more real to the student, show your kid your own personal budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was reading that, I was very concerned. I was like, oh, if I should show my son my personal budget, because my son tends to brag, even though he might be bragging about something that's not brag worthy. But if he saw how much money we brought in,
Mm-hmm.
and all he ever had was $20 a week allowance, he might think our income, he might think we're rich, and he might go to co-op or something and be like, well, my parents have all this money, which isn't really even true. So
right.
This is a way that kind of bridges that. They are money, and they are talking about adult money and understanding, getting some perspective without you having to show your budget. Because the last thing you want is a judgy teenager going, you spend how much on this and all,
right.
That isn't good either.
I know. I remember a couple years ago, we needed a truckload of hay, and it was several people in our neighborhood all put the cash together to go to have somebody else who had a truck drive over to Montana and get this truckload of hay for everybody to split. And my husband was riding with the guy to go get the hay. And so he had all the cash, and it was this big stack of cash because it was all like, 20s and 10s and just whatever everybody in the neighborhood had given us. And our kids were all like, wow, it's like we're rich. And I'm like, and that's going to get us one load of hay.
That's right. That's right. And often in their stories, they leave that part out.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad had a big stack of money, hold up, that came from other,
Yeah, that was all of our neighborhood's money.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, they don't always pick up on all of those pieces.
Correct.
And they definitely, like, we just came home from the Texas Homeschool Conference, and we had gone down there. We planned it in advance. My twins were graduating from 8th grade, and, as homeschoolers, we don't actually graduate. So I wanted to give them some sort of coming of age celebration. So after the conference, we stayed for a few extra days. We went to SeaWorld. They've never been to an amusement park, so that was kind of a big deal for them.
Yeah.
But we told my husband and I were in the hotel, and I was running numbers from the weekend to make sure we were all solid. And I was like, wow, we made X amount. And the kids are like, wow. And I was like, and now I'm going to order all the books I need for the next round. And then I'm going to pay for our tickets to SeaWorld. And we might have enough to get home.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And they need to see it in that context, that there is more to it.
They really do. As if all they ever see is kid size money, then when their first job, my son is going to college to be an engineer, and I don't know how much he's junior. So I don't know how much he'll get paid, but I know it's going to be significantly more than he needs to live for sure. And it'll be the most money he's ever had in his life. His dad and I would have had to work years and years, and these starting salaries these days are high, but he's going to feel rich.
Mm-hmm.
And without this understanding and long-term view of, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to have in the future a house, I'm going to need to buy a cash for a car, without this long range vision for his life, he would probably give 10% away, save 20%, and absolutely blow 70%, because and still feel like he was being a good steward, right? Because he's like, well, I gave it away and I saved some. But when you're 22, you don't have very many expenses. But that doesn't mean it's time for a jet ski, nope.
Our 18-year-old has been working for 3 years as an electrician's apprentice.
Yeah.
He started his first job making $30 an hour at 15. We were like, oh, this isn't going to go well.
That's right.
And he made $50 an hour at 18, and he's laid off right now. Just there's not enough work and he's broke and hurting. And we're like, you made a lot of money and you have nothing to show for it. He even blew up the engine in his truck. So he doesn't even, because it didn't matter to him. He was like, I made a ton of money. I bought this nice brand new truck and I'm going to sit down at the parking lot with all my other redneck buddies and rev my engine until my engine literally blows.
Yep.
And, he's recently moved out. Oh, I can get my own place because I make all this money and I don't need you guys. And we drove by the parking lot where he was sitting with his blown up engine. And we're like, sucks.
Yeah.
All right. See you later.
That's right. Oh, I love, one of my happiest parenting moments was when my son got fired from Chick-fil-A. I was so happy because, he kept coming in. He would never do his laundry. And my kids are plenty capable and they can do their laundry. But if they don't do it, I don't nag them. It's theirs. If they want to smell, that's on them. Right. And so my son never washed his Chick-fil-A uniform, and Chick-fil-A has a standard. And I'm sure he got talked to about it several times. And then finally they fired him. And I I just had a big old grin on my face because that is a priceless lesson, because he's now learning, hey, the boss means what they say. The workplace has standards. And if you don't meet those standards, you're gone. And that's so much better when he's living under my roof at age 16 than it would be when he's 25 and he has, bills to pay, and, he doesn't show up, or he doesn't, he's late, or he doesn't turn in work, whatever happens. I think that these kind of lessons, he's so much more responsible now than he was then. But I think a lot of it's because I just didn't rescue him.
Right. Well, and that's, with 6 kids, we have 6 very different personalities that we're working with. And I've mentioned my daughter a couple of times. She's the only girl and she's the type that she gets it, like we're getting ready for a vacation and she's starting everybody's laundry a week in advance because she wants to make sure it all gets through and we're ready to go, Whereas like our son who's 18, he thinks that we make him do things like his laundry to be mean.
That's right.
So we're like, yep. So, the thing with the engine, we're like, you got to take care of your rig. You got to take care of your rig. It's a new one's not going to just show up for you. And his engine blew and we were like, that sucks.
Yeah.
We didn't like leave him stranded. His buddies were down there and everything. We knew he was good. And we live in a tiny town, like 15,000 people in our whole county. So we're like, yeah, have a nice life. We'll see you when we see you. If you have a rig, come up for dinner on Sunday.
That's right.
Because we live 45 minutes from town. So, but, at the same time, we still cover his cell phone for him because he has to be able to communicate with us and he has to be able to look for a new job and those types of things, and apparently call people for rides.
That's right.
He's like, can't I just use one of your guys' vehicles? You have 2. And we're like, no, my husband runs the ranch and I own 3 other businesses. Like, And we have 5 other kids that need to go to 4-H meetings and baseball. And yeah, no, we don't have another vehicle for you.
Correct. And the quality of your life depends on the quality of your choices. And you mishandled the asset that you had. And I did not. So, sure, would I have loved to rev my engine and look cool? Maybe. I just chose not to do that so that my asset would last. So I'm benefiting from that choice. And you made a different choice. And there are consequences of that choice. So yeah, I love it. Yep.
Yeah. And, he's been that kid his whole life. Like, you make me do my schoolwork because you're just trying to be mean. Well, he started working and he needs to get his GED now to get his electrician journeyman certificate. And we're like, well, you better start working on your GED.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, he has a skill under his belt. There's a lot of electricians in this area that love working with him because he is a hardworking kid. But we're having to, he started doing electrician work at 15 because he couldn't do school anymore. And we agreed. Like, I don't know that our marriage would have lasted him doing school for 3 more years.
Right.
So we're like all about the tough love with him.
Yeah, it's the same. Someone had said to me, because my son Jack is the same, he just had to he had to fail in order to learn. And whereas my daughter is watching it and learning from his journey rather than having to fail on her own. And someone said something, we were talking about Jack, and they were like, yeah, sometimes some kids just have to pee on the electric fence to learn. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
There's truth to that. Although my 18-year-old is the one who we're like, go down to the house and get the fence tester. And he's like, no, I'll just touch it. Oh yeah, it's hot.
Right.
I'm like, that's the 3rd time this week, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are those kids too.
There are. Absolutely. So.
Oh, well, as we're kind of coming to the end of our time, I want to ask my favorite question of all my guests. And that is, what does keep growing mean to you?
Oh, that's, for me, I love to have adventures. And I love to see the world and get out of my fishbowl. So for me, I love to eat. And so for me, it is just to have more experiences and get to know myself and others better.
I love it. Where can everyone find you?
So my website, again, my curriculum is Beyond Personal Finance. So the website is beyondpersonalfinance.com. And you can see me there. And the first thing you'll see is a pop-up just letting you know that every week I just do 1 email a week that provides parenting advice that'll come on Wednesday mornings. So if you want to do that, sign up and join me. I'd love to have you. And if you want to learn more about the curriculum, you can definitely do that there as well.
Wonderful. I'll make sure I link this in the show notes. And I really appreciate you coming on today. And I cannot wait to start your curriculum with my kids.
Excellent. Yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, please head over to your favorite podcast player and leave a comment and review. This helps me to know what you're enjoying and helps others find an episode that can help them. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing.